welcome to the Fandom Show, the podcast where we learn about fantastic fandoms by talking to our favorites about their favorites. I'm Kaya Green.
I am Stephanie Malik.
And today, I am very excited to announce that we are talking about the Super Bowl for people who don't play sports.
And the episode is...
Oscars.
Yay!
I'm thrilled about this.
I know you are. As soon as this came up as our guest's desired topic of choice, I was like, Kaya, this is you.
You know what? It's funny because it's not even like I actually care who wins the Oscar, because I feel as though there's so many strings attached, and we'll get into that. But the whole pageantry of the thing, it gets me going.
Was the Oscars where there was a slap?
Yes.
The slap happened at the Oscars.
The slap happened at the Oscars. That was a very...
I really know a lot about this topic.
Well, you watched it with me that time, I think. And
that was like the first time I'd watched it in like 10 years, and I was like, yo, the Oscars got spicy.
Yeah. Hilariously, everybody talks, we'll get into this, but everybody talks about the slap in that one. And I personally think the funniest part was the fan polls that they did, where everything ended up being about Justice League.
Oh my God.
I thought that was the funniest thing that has ever happened at the Oscars. But anyway, Steph, what do you know about the Oscars?
So other than the slap heard around the globe, the last time I watched the Oscars was when Return of the King came and did their big Oscar sweep.
Right.
I was deeply invested in those 3 movies only. So I watched for those 3 years. I also I'll watch the best song clips on YouTube.
Sure.
Because that's the thing that I care about.
Right. Like highlight reel kind of situation.
Highlight reels. If they have any fun openers, I don't even know who's hosting half the time. But yeah, I'm not a huge film person, so it's not a thing that I actively seek out.
Yeah.
I'll just watch the buzzworthy moments.
Right. Like D2 The Mighty Ducks was never at the Oscars. So
You
why?
shut up. It was robbed. There was some beautiful lasso choreography happening, and honestly, why isn't there a category?
You know what? Oscar snubs, they happen, and that was just one of them. We all agree.
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing about the Oscars for me and why I don't subscribe to them personally is because I feel like the type of movies that end up at the Oscars do so because they set out to end up at the Oscars.
Some of them.
Some of them. That's sort of, from a totally outside point of view, I'm not a film person. But when you watch some movies, you're like, I know you're just trying to win an Oscar. You're doing the thing.
Oscar bait is
where
what you're
you go.
describing.
Yeah, you go look out in the distance and you talk about something that happened in your past. And I'm like, I know what this is for. This is for that clip that they're going to show when you get nominated for this. So it kind of, for me, takes away some of the magic of it. I don't feel invested because it doesn't feel true. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like they're honoring the actual best films out there. They're honoring the ones that hit certain criteria.
Oh yeah.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
That may not be what it is, but that's why I've never connected to it.
And we will most certainly get into that.
Of course we will. Kaya, what do you know about the Oscars?
Well, I grew up watching them. The way
with an actor mom? No way.
With a mother who is an actress. It was a mainstay in my household. I feel as though the way people who are football fans probably felt watching the Super Bowl, thinking, oh, I know I don't play football, but one day I feel like I'm going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, that's the way you feel. That is how I felt about the Oscars. I didn't have any particular plans. I just knew eventually I'd be there. And so as a 8-year-old, I would watch the Oscars and I would go upstairs and I would practice my speech. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
So it is it's one of those things that is just has always been a part of my life, the same way Christmas is, So
it's movie Christmas.
Yeah, and as you get older and as I got more into film, its actual importance dropped, but the tradition of it and the silliness of it and all of the drama of it is still so fun for me.
Yeah.
So that's
the
how
biggest
I feel
night in
about
Hollywood.
So they say.
So they say. So they, the people making it, say.
Yes, exactly. Which is the funniest part of the Oscars is most of the Oscars talking about how important the Oscars is.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's our thoughts on the Oscars. But
do you know who knows a lot about the Oscars?
I'm gonna nominate our guest.
Oh. That's incredible because you know that they've won as the person on this podcast who knows the most about the Oscars.
Oh my God. Are you sure? Double check. It could be a La La Land situation.
This is filmmaker and podcast producer who you may know from Rainbow Road, a gay gaming podcast, Matilda Knarr. Welcome.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Academy and from Superheroes Network and God. Of course, God.
Of course, God.
Number
Oh my gosh.
one movie fan, God.
I am so happy that we're doing this. I am
so excited.
Particularly pleased that we have managed to record this in Oscar season.
Yes. Oh, we're in the thick of it
We're in the
right
thick of
now.
it.
It's the moment.
Because nominations came out 2 days ago,
Exactly.
right? When we're recording this.
And there's already drama.
I love
of
it.
course. That's what they're for.
Yes, absolutely. But we're going to back up a little bit, and we're
Back
going
it
to get into the history, the legacy,
The moment.
Exactly. Before we get into the more recent stuff, Matilda, how did you get into the Oscars?
Oh, so I was obsessed with The Dark Knight.
That is a controversial
that
one.
movie. I don't think it's that controversial personally. I
No,
think everyone
controversial-
agrees it's a slay, it's a serve.
100%.
I don't think people usually use those words, but translating from
Yeah.
between cultures.
Yeah.
But it didn't get a Best Picture nod, right?
No, it did not.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. I was devastated. I was like, okay, Heath Ledger is our moment. We're going for him. I'm so excited. I'm tuning in to watch that happen.
Yeah.
And watching like the moment, the speech, the tears in the room. I was like, oh, this is stories. This is moments, pageantry.
Yeah.
Like this is recognition of a really worthy performance
Yeah.
despite the odds. Oh, what a rush.
Yes.
And from there I was kind of hooked.
I feel like everybody who is a fan of the Oscars has like notable Oscars, you know,
Oh, yeah.
like the one that you tuned in and you're like, come on, you're like cheering for your horse.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mine was
Often
Kate
it's-
Winslet.
Ooh,
She won her Oscar finally.
spicy.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the reader, not her actually
Yeah.
her best movie, I feel. Anyway.
Yeah, we all know it's Titanic. Anyway.
She's very good in Titanic.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
And then from there, I started getting more interested in film in general.
Yeah.
And the Oscars became a really great way to read the community and see, like, okay, if I need to be like looking at films people consider great, films that people consider important and effective, I've got a list right here.
Yeah.
Start going down them, see what works for me, pick my favorites, start rooting. That sort of supplemented sports for me before I became a sports person. I was like, this is how I follow a competition and like root as a fan without having to deal with all the machismo.
Yeah, it is a fun talking point every year that you, with the people that you know who love film, you know that there's at least now 10 films we can all sort of agree to watch and talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very fun.
Let's say, so someone who's not necessarily maybe in North America or someone who's somehow never heard of the Oscars. What makes the Oscars special? Why the Oscars?
Yeah, if you had to describe it to an alien.
That's a good question. Okay.
Why all these people wear these fancy things and go out and sit silently together?
Let's say the aliens know movies. Let's get over
Okay,
that
yeah,
to start.
Let's set some groundwork
Movies,
here.
yeah.
universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is everybody who makes movies coming together to vote on the best movies of the year.
Okay.
There's a whole awards circuit leading up to the Oscars with writers' awards, producers' awards, directors' awards, cinematographers' awards.
The Golden Globes.
The Golden Globes. This is the moment where all of the people who make the films come together sort of internationally-ish and vote on the best films of the year across the board. So this is sort of the big culminating moment of the year of like, what does everyone in the business think is the best film of the year?
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my question as just, maybe it's a dumb question. Why these and not the Golden Globes? Why are the Oscars supposedly bigger and better?
I think that's a great question.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
question. The Golden Globes for a long time has been press.
Oh.
Is journalists and people who write about films maybe, but that's about it. Not even critics. Critics have their own awards. This
Okay.
is more journalists.
So these are people who actively critique movies as opposed to the Oscars, which are people who make them like, we did it.
Yeah.
We did a movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or even people who just cover movies. People who
Okay.
talk to movie stars day in, day out.
Yeah. The entertainment industry that sort of surrounds the filmmaking.
Is the Golden Globes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Golden Globes do TV. And
Yes.
the Oscars are like, TV is garbage.
Yeah. And that's the
TV
other
doesn't
thing.
exist.
that's interesting about it is like for a long time, TV was considered
Lesser. Yeah.
Um,
And none of the movie actors would touch TV.
yeah, it reminds me of the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler hosted joke where she says, where the beautiful people of film come together with the rat-faced people of television, which is so funny to me.
But especially now because TV is where all the movie celebrities are
yeah.
going.
Precisely, yeah. So, but it was a very different time back in the day. So if you were recognizing television, it automatically brought down the.
Yeah, it was like once your career is over, you can head to TV and play around for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Once you have a few too many wrinkles or a few too many scandals, you can just head over there.
Once you've fallen off the real circuit.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of talked about it in the intro. What do people mean when they call a film Oscar bait? Like, what tends to qualify an Oscars movie?
Often I think it's a movie that feels like it's trying to be important.
That's
Yes.
It's with italics and bold and underlined.
Vital to the culture, taking on important topical issues and like telling a grand story that everybody needs to hear. And so often we don't.
So
we know
often
the
we
story. We're
don't.
good. We can chill out a little bit, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think this year one of the top nominees is Emilia Perez, which I've heard, like, when I hear what this movie is, I'm like, yeah, man, that's Oscar bait.
Yes.
Like, that's 100p Oscar bait because most people I've heard in the world talk about it are like, it's not that good.
And the thing is, like, a lot of Oscar fans are also aware of Oscar bait and don't necessarily like it.
Okay.
That's the funny thing.
Some of the wins people hate the most are the most Oscar baity films winning over something genuinely interesting.
Like what?
For instance?
The King's Speech
Oh,
is,
yeah.
people will be like, okay, it's a good movie.
I liked it.
The Social Network was right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like a good example is something like Driving Miss Daisy is very Oscar baity of being like, we're going to have a soft conversation about race.
Yeah.
Will it be challenging? No.
Is that like
It will
La
be
La Land
soft.
was Oscar bait, right?
So this is the interesting thing about Oscar bait, though. Often movies that take on important topics will do so in a weird enough way that I can't really consider them Oscar bait.
Okay.
That's the hard thing with like Emilia Perez. It's taking on important topics. It's taking on stuff that you sort of think of as Oscar baity topics, but it's doing it in such a weird, offbeat way, in a way that is not like, if you were to sit down and optimize a film for the Academy, you would not put it in a foreign language usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are sort of complicating factors in there. Something can be Oscar baity and also alternative at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. Because also sometimes it's subject matter, sometimes it's the way it's filmed, right?
And
like,
sometimes
or
it's
who's in
just
it.
the campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the
Harvey
movie's
Weinstein,
campaign.
may he rot in jail,
May he rot forever.
really created the modern Oscar industry with his campaigning. I think one of the most famous is The Imitation Game about Alan Turing.
Okay.
He ran this big campaign around honor the film, honor the man. That like this is such an important story that honoring the film is important to gay rights. And like campaigned like the parliament in Britain to issue like a formal pardon to Alan Turing, all of these like grand gestures to keep it top of mind and remind everybody how important it is. And like it's a movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's
Oh my God.
a
Oh my God.
movie.
Yeah, and he's been doing that for decades, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there's sort of a before and after Harvey Weinstein when it comes to lots of things, but specifically the Oscars.
Yeah, and his campaign tactics really reflect the person he was, which is vicious and aggressive.
And what does that look like? What does like a vicious campaign look like? Comparatively.
Going to the press at strategic times with stories that reflect badly on other films.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. There's always a late surge when close to the end of the voting window, suddenly stories start coming out about the films that reflect badly. Like it's already started this year. There's been questions about films using AI in unethical ways that have leaked at very specific times.
Interesting.
Sometimes it is a blunder. Sometimes it's the filmmakers just like mentioning something offhand and getting themselves into trouble. Sometimes it's like, ooh, is the ghost of Harvey in the room with us right now?
Oh no.
Oh boy. That's so interesting. And like for those that don't follow this, like who votes on these things and what films are kind of like even eligible? Because there's so many films that come out every year. Which ones kind of get considered?
So that's the question. eligibility is not really what gets a film considered. A lot of films are eligible.
Yeah.
Like, probably in the thousands. Yet we somehow end up with a nominee pool of like 23 films at the end of the year across all the categories. So what it comes down to is what the studios will put the money behind to campaign.
Right.
They're sort of like, you're running on an economy of attention and a literal economy, where like voters can only see so many films per season. They're doing jobs, they're doing press, they're watching these in their off time.
Right.
So you have to put in front of them, here's the list of the films we as a studio consider the best that we think you should watch. These are for your consideration.
Yes, yes, yes.
In terms of money, you have to send screeners to people. You're sending actors out on press tours. There's a lot of money behind an actual Oscar campaign. So the studios sort of decide what films they think have the best odds of winning any Oscar at a given time and put their money behind that, which often leads to films that like are interesting but a little more challenging getting shut out even though they already have some buzz. It happens every year. There's always a couple smaller films from like people we love that are really good that we all sort of slowly watch wither on the vine before the nominations come out because they're just not getting the money they need to campaign.
Yeah, I think a lot about Spike Jonze and his many different attempts to get an Oscar that he certainly deserves.
Yeah. And this is often where Black nominees wither on the vine. You've watched like Daniel Deadwyler, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, like year after year, they're giving great performances, but they're in films that are a little bit harder to connect with for older, established white voters.
Yes, white voters.
And out of no immediate malice, the studio is like, I don't think you have good odds. I think we're shutting your campaign down.
Ugh.
Yeah, because it all becomes about economy and about chances. Because, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, what does winning an Oscar do for a film or a creator?
It can make or break careers.
Right.
Like you watch someone like Damien Chazelle, who directed La La Land. A couple of years before that, his feature debut Whiplash had gotten a lot of Oscars attention. He would not be able to make La La Land at that budget and scale
not a
without that
chance.
kind of attention.
Yeah.
Similarly, there's some great Oscar nominees who have been nominated young but didn't win, who then sort of disappeared. Again, often Black, looking at like Gabourey Sidibe from Precious. Keisha Castle-Hughes from The Whale Rider. There's a lot of people who like could really use that chance at a win to like bolster the fact that they are serious actors and should be like considered for more roles that just don't end up getting it and then sort of fade into the TV sphere or supporting
The cursed
roles.
television sphere. Here's a question. Why does nobody like comedy for the Oscars? Why is
Terrific
comedy
question.
so... Because comedy is... I'm going to say this is scandalous. Comedy's harder than drama.
It's not even scandalous.
Comedians can do drama better than dramatic actors can do comedy.
Depending on the actor, but yes.
Generally true. I'll
So
give it to you.
why do they not think comedy is worthy of an Oscar?
So a lot of people talk about the Oscars as rewarding the most acting rather than the best
Yeah,
acting.
it's a quantity over quality thing.
And they're not wrong. Many a prosthetic nose has been worn.
Jesus Christ,
Many an
Nicole
accent
Kidman.
has been affected.
Whatever happened to Virginia Woolf?
I love Meryl Streep fully and truly, but the fact that she has 21 nominations is less down to like her having an incredible amount of talent compared to her peers and more she picks roles where you can measure her acting.
And then she gets put in them because she's had so many Oscars and like it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
And I think she doesn't get them because at her heart she is a comedic actor and not a dramatic
I
actor.
think you can really see late in her career that she's like, I've
Just fuck
done my time.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to do fun shit now.
Absolutely. She's a brilliant comedian. Anyway.
But that's what leads to a lot of patterns in acting nominees where people are nominated for real people or performances with heavy accents and makeup.
Yeah, transformations.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Get an ugly for an Oscar.
Cough Demi Moore right now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas performances that are a little bit less measurably like transformative, people who are playing characters that are a bit closer to themselves but are still incredible, nuanced, layered performances, have a lot harder time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that's comedy. That's knowing your beats, knowing your timing. It's hard for someone sitting down and watching 23 films to see that and have it stand out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and I feel as though people really measure how difficult was this performance or film to make.
How much therapy did you need after acting?
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like there's this almost Olympian kind of energy of how much pain did you suffer in order to do this? Like, for instance, I think of Black Swan and the performance that she put in, and how there was so much in the Academy, in the campaign beforehand, being like, she lost so much weight. She did so much ballet. She worked so hard. You have to give her an award. You know, like, that's kind of Daniel Day-Lewis is a good example. How
Christian
method was
Bale.
he? Christian Bale is the example of that.
Like going from like 120 pounds to wearing a gigantic fat suit. He's the king of transformative acting, for better or for worse.
And it's like, look at what this man is willing to put his body through. And I'm like, I don't think that makes...
Maybe we could just cast someone who like looks like the character we're going for, actually.
Have you considered acting?
Yeah.
For your consideration.
For your consideration, acting.
So categories at the Oscars often get added and removed, but do you think there are too many categories? Or do you think there's too few? And are they still threatening to remove camera and editing?
They're not threatening to remove it entirely, but there's always the talk of putting it like in its own little YouTube video or something, which does pain me.
I literally can't with that. It's what films are literally made of.
But they're not the pretty faces.
And if you want to keep the ceremony as opulent and watched as it is, you have to make sure it doesn't take 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising. But especially categories like the shorts, that often gets talked about. The Oscars reward best short film for animated, live action, and documentary. And those are always something people talk about as, well, it's great enough for them to win an Oscar. These are upstart filmmakers. They don't really need that moment. They're winning an Oscar. It's already big enough.
That's so sad.
Right. But it's all economy and keeping the ship afloat when you're trying to run a show with that budget and that scale and those stakes.
Yeah. Because the viewership has sort of been falling off, right?
Yeah, like any live event on TV, it's a bit harder to get people sitting down with a cable box nowadays.
Yes.
And they haven't figured out like a solid streaming solution yet, I don't think. They're still playing around with those options.
VR us, like have someone there with a camera on them in the audience and do like a VR experience so that you feel like you're at the Oscars. And you like look to your right and you're like, it's Nicole Kidman. Look to your left, it's somebody else who's famous. I don't know who's famous.
Very funny, but also, from what I understand, the worst part of the Oscars is attending them.
Yeah.
Apparently, stars hate attending the Oscars.
It's like you're expected to be in your seat at the exact right time so they can get your shot, and then
in that
trying to run
uncomfortable
to the bar
outfit.
in the washroom. Oh yeah,
Like you're snatched everywhere.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And you never know when someone is going to rope you into a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about, because hosts love their bits, and those are my favorite parts of it. But are there iconic hosts that you think did it best?
I love Whoopi.
Whoopi, okay.
I love Whoopi.
Whoopi is like a visual icon for the Oscars too. She came out in the full royal queen regalia.
You just sent me back.
When did she host? When was that?
Oh, early 2000s.
I would say, or like late 90s.
Yeah. I do like Ellen and Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris is a perfect host, in my opinion. I think he's so good at hosting. He's so charming, but he also goes all out.
Yeah.
He's never holding back. He's never trying to be wry and like restrained. He's like, I'm a Broadway bitch and you're going to see it.
Yeah, not to change ceremonies here, but if you haven't seen his Tony openings, every single one of them is top notch.
Let him do that at the Oscars.
Truly, absolutely. Let him go all out. Yeah. Okay, so yes, that's a very good choice.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see them play around with hosts a bit more. Because there was a period where no one really wanted to host.
Well, it's a very tough gig, and you're putting yourself out there.
Especially now that social media is so prevalent and people can respond in real time and get angry at you for the stuff you say. It is a lot harder.
Yeah, I think of that period where nobody wanted to do it as the like Anne Hathaway, James Franco period. Because that was...
Ooh, that was rough.
It was almost extra enjoyable because watching Anne Hathaway Hathaway drag the dead body of James Franco across that stage was so funny to me. He was asleep.
Yeah, or had imbibed a little too much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Who's hosting this year?
Conan O'Brien, I believe.
Honestly?
That'll be
Yeah.
good.
I'll watch that.
I respect
Yeah.
what Jimmy Fallon's done the past few... Kimmel Fallon? I always get them.
Kimmel.
Has done the past 2 years, but he has a bit more of an attitude of like, isn't this silly?
Yeah.
Isn't this like, aren't we silly for like, no, buy into the fantasy a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, let yourself have some doe eyes about it.
Yeah.
Even if you have to put it on.
Have you ever seen any of the Billy Crystal years?
Oh, yeah.
Billy Crystal was so good.
Oh, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and he would do all the sketches off the top. Those were some of the Return of the King years.
I know.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Who's the worst host?
Ooh, I think James Franco's probably up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have to go James Franco for worst host. That was uncomfortable in the worst
Yeah.
way.
I just felt so bad for Anne Hathaway, and I rarely feel bad for Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Like,
Because you know she has the theater kid energy to pull that off.
3,000%.
She's been roped into bits before and killed it.
Yes.
So it was like, who thought they were doing something by matchmaking those two? I want to be in the room where that happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't understand
Yeah.
any of it.
Who chose that, and how much coke were they on?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I did like when she jumped in on Hugh Jackman's.
Oh, Hugh Jackman is another one. His opening number
Oh yeah.
is on par with Neil Patrick Harris in the best way.
yes, absolutely. I think that because he brought that Broadway to it. And I think that that's, if you're going to go over the top opulence, if you're going to say we are the top of the game, that opening needs to be humongous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is funny because it is a stage show.
Yeah.
The Oscars is a stage show full of film people.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But you're right. It is. That's what Hugh Jackman brought to it. Like, that Oscars was my absolute favorite. A, because Kate Winslet won. Cha-ching. But B, because he did this opening thing that was like, the Oscars don't have a budget. So I'm going to do the like lowest budget opening.
Which is my favorite bit in the world.
I thought it was so funny.
And historically, that was interesting. There was a big opulent musical number in the 80s that went so badly that it kind of killed opulent musical numbers.
Really?
in the
Oh,
Oscars
say
for a
more, say
bit.
more.
Who's
They
doing it?
had, I forget who was hosting, but they had, the through line of the number was this Snow White. They plucked a Snow White out of Vegas.
What?
And had her sort of going between all of these Hollywood scenes, the Coconut Club, the Stars of Tomorrow, Grauman's Chinese Theater. It was such an infamous flop. This was Bruce Valanche, who now writes for the Oscars.
Oh my God.
I believe was starting around then. And they thought they were really killing it up until they watched it on screen.
Oh my
And it
God.
fell so flat in the room and so flat at home.
No.
Guys,
People were fired. Like,
don't make decisions on cocaine. Don't.
You just told Hollywood not to Hollywood.
Hollywood,
that's-
cut it out. Who's your dream host? Like, if you could pick anyone to host the Oscars.
that's a good question. I want to see someone who is like, I don't know what comedians do in their off hours. I just want one who's like a good, solid movie nerd.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
Honestly, you take any sort of like, I think they're going for very established comedians right now, but even someone like a Taylor Tomlinson,
Okay,
like that
yep.
level, like Nikki Glaser just did the Golden Globes, and I thought she really did well.
She crushed it.
I think you need someone who's so genuinely happy to be there, and this is such a big career moment for them
Yeah.
that they can bring that energy as opposed to like, here's another gig.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's super fair. What about you, Steph? Who would you love to see host the Oscars?
Oh. I mean, mine are going to be insane. I'm going to be like the Four Hobbits. I don't know, bring them back.
Honestly, that'd be fun.
Let Billy Boyd do it. He'd be delightful as hell. He'd be so chuffed.
A part of me wants to say Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart together.
That's a brilliant
Oh my
idea.
God, just two iconic, blessed souls.
They
yes.
deserve everything, those two.
And they know how to command that room.
Oh, they certainly.
They're at home.
They would rip the audience to shreds in such a loving way. They'd like
Totally.
tease them, but then everyone would be like, I can't be mad at either of them. They're so charming.
Yeah. Two grand dames, the two of them.
Oh, I would love it. You know what? Give it to Meryl Streep. Let her host an Oscars.
I honestly, she's too good for it.
I know. She is. But like, I think that she would, because of the point of her career that she's at, she'd just be like, I'm going to make this so extra and so silly and so fun.
I mean, put her and Martin Short together.
Oh my
Now
God.
that they're a
That
little
would be
item.
fun.
I think
Yeah.
that would be so fun.
Let Martin Short and Steve Martin host.
Oh, Steve
I
Martin
think
would be
that
fun.
Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin hosted in like 2010 or something,
did.
and they had a real good time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a fun one.
Okay, so we know the Oscars are as much about pageantry as they are about films, but do you have iconic moments or looks that you think like really imprinted in pop culture? Like a Bjork in the swan dress, like the leg with Angelina
I was gonna
Jolie.
say the leg. The
Leg
leg
was
is
so
iconic.
much.
Okay, for those who do not remember this iconic moment, what was the leg?
Angelina Jolie wore this beautiful gown with a split down just off center so that she could stick her whole leg out.
And she sure did, didn't
And in
she?
every photo, she's got full thigh sitting right
the
there.
sleekest black dress, and she like has this like beautiful silhouette, and then there's just this like streak of pale leg.
Oh, the thing
Yes.
that's so funny about it too is it's not even just the picture. If you watch the clip of her going up to present this Oscar, she walks straight up to the microphone and then just like intentionally sticks her leg
Just-
out in such a way that you're like, oh, you
you-
rehearsed that at home.
I was like, I want to add a sound effect to it. I want to hear. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. It's like it's that performative stuff that I think makes the Oscars so funny.
Yeah. In terms of Oscar red carpet stuff, it's always a look and a person combined. Like Bjork works so well because she's Bjork.
Yeah.
Cher works so well because it's that dress on Cher serving it.
Yeah.
I think of like Jennifer Lawrence
Oh yeah.
in these opulent ball gowns, especially in the year she won. She's like radiant, beautiful, diamond spilling over, falling on the steps. Like that contrast.
Iconic.
Like the look always gets married with a personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think like you could put me in the Angelina Jolie dress. It's going to be not the same. Even if I stick my leg out, like it's not a presence. It's going to be like, who's this weird blob of a human just jutting part of their limbs out? Like
Yeah.
you have to have a certain gravitas to like.
It takes a lot for your leg to be a film star.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so fun because it is watching people pull off almost a role they've chosen for the night. Like, it's always a talking point, I feel, when someone picks a big look and you can see them struggling in it. Like, you can see them, like, uncomfortable for
Or
whatever
tripping
reason.
over their
tripping
train
over
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like old Hollywood was running on star personas. Everybody was doing this level of like, this is me
Yeah.
all the time in every
Yeah,
interview.
Big Mae West.
Yeah. Whereas like in the culture of authenticity now, this is one of the few times where we see them really go all out on a persona and not try to be relatable necessarily.
Yeah.
And it is fun to see that again.
And it is, like, part of how those personas get made. Like, I think of Diane Keaton.
Mm,
Like the Diane Keaton look kind of came together at the Oscars because she would always wear tuxes.
Yeah.
Back when that was not.
And
really
I would
a
assume
thing
a
people
hat
did.
because
And
I
yeah,
think about hats when I think of Diane Keaton.
a lot of scarves. Like
Yeah.
she and Johnny Depp dressed the same. Am I wrong?
No.
In fact, I think Johnny Depp stole the look from Diane Keaton.
Now I'm just imagining Diane Keaton in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Honestly, I think she would have crushed it.
Oh, she would have killed it.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like those personas get built up at the Oscars.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when they're like having a star-making moment. When this is someone's sort of big splash on the scene.
Their big first Oscars.
Yeah, exactly. This is your way of putting a stamp on like, I'm the silly star. I'm the opulent star.
Yeah.
I am the like aged grande dame who's still got it.
Yeah, it's your like, you know, in Regency era, it's your like being presented to society.
debutante moment.
Yes, it's
Totally.
your debutante moment. You're like, I have to show exactly who I am right now, so you accept me and you let me into your society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why like there's a whole economy of stylists behind them and people working to create those looks, like La Roche, putting Zendaya in all of her stuff for her premieres.
Yeah.
That like there are people who are so specialized at creating those moments.
Yeah.
Because they get given a lot of these looks, right? Because it is a massive advertisement for that company.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of a Met Gala 2.0.
Yeah,
in some
definitely.
ways.
It'd be terrifying though, because like some of those folks are wearing like literal like $1 million necklace.
Totally.
And I'd be like, do not trust me with this. I'm about to get shit faced with my friends. Like, Why would you let me have this?
I think maybe they remove some of those pieces when they
Okay.
go to the after party.
Well-
I might be wrong.
Oh, they have
though.
full other looks for the after
Yeah,
party.
of course
Oh,
they
they
do.
rotate through. They're getting their coin for all of these outfits.
Yeah, but it makes sense why it'd be so uncomfortable to sit through a 4-hour ceremony in that kind of like presentational thing that's not made for sitting.
Exactly.
Oh my God. And they probably, not to stereotype, they probably haven't eaten a lot going in too. So then they start having drinks because they're stuck in the audience. Like, I love watching drunk people get up on stage and being like, I have to say my thing now. Shit.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is still true, but there was a time where I believe the Golden Globes had more of an open bar.
They did, yeah.
And you could always see the difference in the crowd reaction shots between the Oscars, where everybody's very demure and like happy to be there
Mindful.
and polite, and the Golden Globes, where everybody's hanging half out of their seat with their friends, like, yeah, you're right, girl, you're right.
It's so true. It's so true. Speaking of, are there any like fun facts about the actual ceremony itself? Like I know like seat fillers are a big thing.
Oh yeah, anytime someone goes out to the bar, you've got to put someone in that seat to make sure that it still looks like a full crowd.
Would you want to do that job?
Oh, I would love to do that job. I would be so good at it. I would be so polite. I would save my moment and only do one quip to the celebrity beside me so they didn't feel like I was trying to steal the moment, but that they still knew that I was cool and hip and could treat them like a normal person.
Really thought this through.
I've measured this out. Absolutely.
It's so funny to me that there is like a small army at the back of the theater of people in like ball gowns and running shoes.
Just ready to jump.
Ready to fucking run in there, sit in a seat and leave. It's so funny.
The other thing, I want to be backstage or at the writer's table just watching, because they have the show mostly pre-written, but they also have the team of writers back there to respond as the night goes on, incorporate like the slap when that happens. You've got to comment on that. You have to be able to
if you
diffuse that
ignore
situation.
that, like, that would be so uncomfortable.
And they're not just going to leave that on the host. So they've got the squad back there just like brainstorming, like, how crass do we need to be about everything that's happened so far to make people comfortable?
Yeah.
What level do we have to hit here?
Because something always happens. Can we talk about the something always happens of the Oscar? Like, there's a moment in every ceremony that everybody talks about, whether it's the slap, whether it's the infamous Adele Dazeem,
whether it's Moonlight and La La Land.
Right, exactly. Like, are these moments that you think that they like hope for, plan for, or does that just happen organically because of the like size of the spectacle?
I think it happens because of the size of the spectacle and the personalities involved.
Totally. The John Travoltas, if you will.
Like, they definitely run dress rehearsals.
Yeah.
Not everybody shows up. Not everybody shows up.
Actors not
fully.
showing up for dress rehearsals? No way.
Some people are there to hit their mark. And you've seen, like, they often bring out the largest, like, era bygone stars, like the 50-year career stars to do Best Picture.
Yeah.
Which can often lead to Faye Dunaway and Liza Minnelli in her year, where like they are just above it all and they have not rehearsed what's going on because they're like, I'm fucking Liza Minnelli. I'm not.
I'm not coming into a theater for 2 hours
Just
in my
to
sweatpants.
practice reading a name.
Yeah.
But also, she's not known for her poise and her grace particularly. She's known for being a bit of a mess.
True.
Yeah.
So, like, you
And
get
we
what
love
you
her
get.
for it.
We love
Yeah.
her for it, but that's why you put her there. Because you're like, Liza's going to bring Liza.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's also part of the charm is that like it's such a group of people that does not do live. They do like polished. They do
Rehearsed
they
to
do
the T.
screen
Buttoned
tested.
up.
Yeah.
And-
Small things. Small.
Exactly. All of these actors want to be seen in a very specific, edited, polished, color corrected way, and it's the one night a year where they don't have control.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's kind of why I like acceptance speeches a lot of the time. Sometimes you do get people who are well practiced and are very professional, but sometimes the moment just hits them and they're breaking down in tears and they don't know what to say and they say some silly stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, yes, give me a little bit of like uncontrolled authenticity.
Yeah, show me real.
Yeah, this is what I live off of.
Yes. Okay, best acceptance speeches.
Ooh, Olivia Colman, I love.
Okay.
I think she was the quintessential, like, Glenn Close was supposed to win that year. She came in gold, thinking she'd be standing up there because she'd won all of the previous awards.
God.
Olivia Colman's name gets called, and you can see true, honest-to-God shock.
I love that.
And her acceptance speech, she's going through all of it, and you can just see so much earnestness. If there's any little girl practicing her speech on the telly, you never know.
Oh, that's so nice. For the favorite? Was that
For the
what you went
favorite.
Oh, man, she was phenomenal. In that film.
Exactly.
She was the favorite.
She was the favorite,
This is
but
the
she
thing,
wasn't the favorite to win is the funny
Because
part.
there's such a thing of career wins.
Yes.
There's always a tally of the people who have had a long career, been nominated over and over, and have never won, and everybody's always kind of waiting. And sometimes they win for the wrong thing,
Yes,
frankly.
several
Meryl
times.
Streep did not need an Oscar for The Iron Lady.
She did not.
No.
But it had been too long since she got one, so we gave her one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like, the pinnacle, the best moments are when someone has had that long streak and wins for the right thing.
Yeah.
Like Roger Deakins was on like nomination 13 as a cinematographer for Blade Runner 2049.
Okay,
One of the
yeah.
best of his career. And I remember all of the film dorks I was with, like watching that like a sports game, like, yeah, Roger!
I remember that, and so many, like, it was such a interesting little subset of people that were like, it's gonna be Deacon's year, because he is one of the most legendary cinematographers of all time. He has like invented techniques. He's incredible.
A pioneer, an innovator.
Absolutely. I don't know why it took him so long, or took the Academy so long. He did great.
Yeah.
Do you think the Oscars actually represent the best movies of the year?
Oh God, no. Oh God, no. So there are some of the best movies in that roster every year.
Okay.
The problem is that everyone disagrees on what the best movie of the year
Yeah.
is. Like
Yeah.
if you ask my mom what the best movie of the year is, she's going to name something.
Wicked.
This year, yes. But often she looks at the Oscar nominees like, I haven't heard of any of these. What are we
Yeah.
talking about? Like I really liked that Jack Black movie actually.
Comedies.
So
Give it.
it's a lot more about building consensus. What movie did we all like enough to put it in the history books and feel good about that?
Yeah. And interestingly, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. There are like a list of Oscars that won Best Picture and kind of disappeared.
And some of the time, giving a film an Oscar is an attempt to keep it in the memory when you know it's going to fade.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, this was not a big showy thing, but this was so well done that we want to put a stamp on it and say, no, I want in 50 years someone who really likes the Oscars to go back through a list, discover this again, and have like a time capsule unearthing moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think a lot about The Artist. Do you remember when The Artist won? Have you seen The Artist?
Nope.
Neither have I. But it is a silent film.
Is that Brody? Adrian Brody?
No.
It's random French people.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's a fully silent film, and it won Best Picture. But since that year, I have not spoken to a single person about the movie The Artist.
Yeah.
You know?
And
it
this
disappeared.
And this is what keeps me at peace with the Oscars, is that like this year, Challengers got completely snubbed.
It
My
did.
favorite movie of the year, I consider it the best, and I thought it had a good shot. What keeps me at peace is that it's a good film and it's going to get remembered because it's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't need an Oscar to get remembered because it had the box office, it had the cultural moment. It got the accolades in other ways.
Got it.
Sometimes what the film needs is not the money, is not the culture. Sometimes it needs an Oscar to keep it remembered.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And
But
on
then should it have an Oscar? Should it be remembered just because the hoity-toities at the top are like, this one should be remembered? Like they get to decide who remembers it.
I think what matters to me as a film nerd, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is the discussion around which one deserves it. Sometimes cements all of them in a way. That's my opinion. Who actually wins rarely matters. You know, who actually gets the award?
Then why is there a show about it?
Because the Oscars want to promote movies.
That's the thing, it's a show.
It's a show.
Oh.
Yeah. It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, even if you don't get a happy ending at the end of your favorite fictional show,
Yeah.
you remember the journey and you're impacted by the journey. Even if your
okay.
favorite doesn't win Best Picture, like Brokeback Mountain,
Yep.
it still goes down in history of, oh, that should have won.
Yeah, that movie should have won.
I'm still mad on its behalf.
That movie was
and
a
it makes
killer
you
movie.
love it even more.
Okay.
Like once in a while, the one you love gets it. But you're right, people disagree. Like I love that Everything Everywhere All at Once won an Oscar. I think it is such a weird movie that I never would have predicted would even been close to the Oscars, and yet it won. And to me, the idea that a movie where there's a butt plug fight won an Oscar is terrific.
Yeah.
But some people loathe that movie.
That's fascinating because one of the things with that movie specifically, I was like, it did something so different.
Yes.
That it stood itself out and it had these iconic performances that were both ridiculous and grounded.
Yes. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
But it like
They didn't try to be Oscar bait, and that's why I was like, Get it.
And sometimes it is healthy for a bad film to win.
Oh,
This is a bit of a hot
Oh, I
take.
love this.
But I think we need to be able to look back and see that Crash and Green Book won Oscars and feel embarrassed. We need that social sanction to be like, ooh, I don't think we're listening to black people enough. I think we need to course correct here, guys.
Okay, on that note, let's talk about Oscars So White.
Yes.
Can you explain what happened there, what it was, that kind of moment?
So 2014, and I believe 2015 as well, black nominees were completely shut out of the acting categories. There are 20
Everything.
nominees every year, and not a single black person was in them. Now I want to emphasize, that's not just the voters hate black people. This is an ecosystem.
Yep.
The types of movies that win Oscars don't cast black people unless they're slaves or suffering.
Woof.
Once we get into the awards circuit, if a black person is not immediately taking off, they get dumped by the studio into oblivion.
Yeah.
Once we get to the actual awards, there's a feeling of like, well, we already nominated the issue film about racism, so why would we need another black person?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of factors that lead to stuff like this. This is not just a voting group that is entirely just out and out racist. It's the whole industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a good barometer of like, okay,
Guys,
yeah, at this point, that's ridiculous, and we need to look at why.
Yeah.
That was the best thing that's happened to the Oscars this decade, I think, because that started questioning who is voting on these and why.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've mentioned, like, it's an industry group. There's a group of actors who vote, cinematographers who vote. Everybody nominates for their branch,
Okay.
and then everybody votes on the winners of all of the categories. That sort of woke people up to like, oh, our structure means that if you've ever been nominated to the Academy, if you've ever been nominated or won, you get a voting spot,
Okay.
and you keep it for
Forever?
your whole life.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
It rarely gets revoked.
Okay.
So that means we have a very top-heavy Academy full of older people who were nominated in the 60s that don't necessarily reflect the tastes of today.
Yeah.
So they started making a very specific effort to invite more people of color to the Academy, more young people, and more international people.
Yes.
Bless.
We've seen some like movement towards black people, especially getting nominations, Asian people getting nominations and winning. One of the bigger shifts we got was international films.
Yes.
Since 2019 and Parasite, I think we've had an international film in the running for Best Picture
Which is astounding. That's
and
amazing.
winning.
Yeah.
We're now at the point where like multiple international nominees are coming in every year. This used to be a very local award show, as Bong Joon-Ho would put it.
Oh, yes.
It's like, I don't really care about the Oscars. It's a local award show. It is.
Yeah.
Which, hilarious, incredible, love.
Iconic.
Love.
But we're starting to fix that. We're starting to say, okay, maybe some of those international films are worth recognizing here and building that sort of audience, building those connections. Maybe American moviegoers need to hear about some of these and would enjoy them.
Absolutely.
Despite the distance.
Yeah, I mean, we're on a global stage. To refuse to acknowledge the internationality of media and movies is to isolate yourself. Like, there's so much good media happening in so many countries around the world, and so to be like, well, it's like Miss Universe. It's like it's only America.
Yeah.
Like, no way. Absolutely not.
Especially when you claim to be about the best movies,
Yeah.
period. And also, I think we are entering a stage where a lot of people are inundated with content in media, and people are getting sick of seeing the same thing over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And the thing that foreign film brings is different perspectives, different styles that I think a lot of people are craving. Like, Parasite was undeniably the best film on that list. You know, it was unique. It was it was important. Italics, underline, bold.
Yeah.
And
you
I
know?
keep talking about the industry behind this. There's an industry of prognosticators and predictors and journalists talking about what's going to win, even 2 years ahead, starting to predict.
Yeah.
And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you see a great film in another language and you go, oh, well, it's great, but it'll never win an Oscar, it'll never take off here, then you don't write about it and no one hears about it.
Yeah.
So I think people have started to realize if we start talking about the things we love, like the Fandom Show, they have that same ethos of like, we can will it into existence. We can get people on board with good art and change what people are seeing just through predictions.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's so interesting.
Also, the word prognosticate, was that
Yeah.
the word? I was like, I don't know this word, but I love this word.
It's like full out forecasting. They have like their weather models and everything.
Yeah.
And they're standing in front of a green screen going, so Emilia Perez is coming up from the south in a larger wave, but you see the brutalist coming in from this side.
Just like election night boards. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Now the vote tallies from the actors branch aren't in yet, so hold on to your hats. We're in for a bumpy night.
Challengers is falling behind in this district.
Yeah, and we really needed to win Iowa.
Yes, 100%. It is like an industry on an industry on an industry. Man, oh, that's so interesting. How do you feel about this year's selection?
This is a fun year.
Yeah?
Okay.
The past 2 years, we've had great films, great films. Everything Everywhere All at Once, Oppenheimer, like the full roundup was great.
Yeah, Anatomy of a Fall was fantastic.
Barbie.
But going into
Yes, actually.
but going into sort of the playoffs of the Oscar, phase 2, when you hear the nominations and it's down to okay, here are the films we've nominated, what's going to win.
Yeah.
At that point, it was locked. It was pretty safe bet that Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win. It was a pretty safe bet that Oppenheimer is going to win.
Yeah.
This year, we got like 5 films that could take it.
Anybody's game.
Yeah, so who are the nominees for this year's best film?
Okay, let's see if I can do this without looking.
Okay.
And I will,
Kai's
I will
gonna-
double
Okay.
check.
Okay, because it came out 2 days ago. We've been talking about a bunch more films. So I don't know if I have the actual
Kaya's got
list
your back.
memorized
We
yet.
got you. We got you.
Okay. Honora, Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, I'm Still Here, Wicked. Oh, what's the last one?
I didn't know there were 10 nominated. I
There
thought it was
are.
5.
Yeah, that changed in recent years.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it used to be 5.
Yes. It's
Like with
only
all the
been-
acting categories.
That is correct. And then they expanded them for multiple reasons. One, because a lot of people were like, oh, this didn't get recognized, didn't get recognized. But more importantly, so they could put more nominated for Best Picture on more movies.
Aww. I mean, sure.
But the good thing is it means that more genre gets nominated, more comedy
It's
gets
true,
nominated.
because that never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the last one?
What's the last one? I'm going to miss it. I'm going to
You have gotten all of them, I think, except one, but I'm not sure which
Just-
one you...
Okay.
Okay.
Honora, Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Dune Part 2, A Complete Unknown, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, Wicked, and
Oh, yes, I know which one you're missing. It's a genre film.
it's a genre film. The Substance.
There it is. Yeah. I knew you'd get it. I didn't want to take it away from
I
you.
keep forgetting that the Oscars are going for that.
I know.
Body horror, first time ever.
And I think that's another one of those examples of the buzz just became overwhelming to the point where
You couldn't ignore it.
You couldn't ignore it. Like the buzz on The Substance has been huge. Like it's having a real black swan moment.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize because I know a lot of people have your sort of preconceived notion of the Oscars as Oscar bait and rewarding that. I think it's changing. I think if you like weird movies, if you want to see them get recognized, now is the time to get invested in the Oscars.
I think that's, to your point of there's so much content, I think, people are noticing this across, for lack of a better term, and I'm using huge quotations, higher art. And how alienating it can be, especially when we have so much media available at all times. And I
Yeah.
think that's a brilliant way of bringing in audiences for something that's floundering over the years because it's so hoisted on its own petard,
Yeah.
like it considers itself. I think about like the symphonies and how they were losing all their audiences because all their audiences were old and white and dying.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we get people into this quote unquote higher art? It's like, make it accessible, show them things that they recognize, play soundtracks, bring into the Oscars weird movies, bring in Wicked, like the most bubblegum beautiful Broadway musical.
Yeah.
Because that's going to get audiences, whether or not you believe it is artistically the best film, to deny a large swath of people's passion and care for these properties. I think you're just doing yourself a disservice. So I think it's brilliant to bring this broader and bring weird shit.
And I love it so much. If there was ever a list of nominees where it was truly the 10 best films of the year, but it was all financial successes, I would be really sad.
Yeah.
Because I think even regardless of quality, films like Nickel Boys, these smaller films that don't have a commercial audience widely available, need something like the Oscars so that they have a reason to get made.
Yeah.
So that a studio can justify greenlighting it, and we still have that industry available.
For sure.
I think you're both right. It's like at its core, the Oscars is best when it's a mix.
Yeah.
When you have a little bit of those like big important Oscar baity movies, and then you have a little bit of those weirdo movies that you're like, what the fuck are you doing here? Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I love
We're
it.
thrilled to see you.
I love it.
And then you have smaller like independent films. Like that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see all of these kind of tones playing together and getting to be on the same stage.
And the what I hope for in the future is more of a mix too.
Yeah.
Because Everything Everywhere All at Once, weird butt plug fights, completely off the wall. Also a like serious moving story about the immigrant experience,
I cried,
about
like, 3
intergenerational
times.
connection.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can be both.
Yeah. And it's
absolutely.
important to have not only the big budgets, those like we're missing a lot of that middle ground of film, I feel like right now. And, you know, there are people and actors who have, I think it was Matt Damon, who's like, you know, no one pays for these middle budget comedies because you're putting so much money into films and making them that it has to be a guaranteed success. So you lose out on interesting and like unique stories. But the Oscars, I think, for what you're both saying, is it's an opportunity to cover and hopefully continue to cover that like wide experience of movies, that it's not just $300 million budgets versus,
absolutely.
you know, movies that no one might have ever heard of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a moment for to put some juice into some people who wouldn't normally get seen or even get a lot of theaters, like a theatrical distribution. In a big way, right? So yeah, there's fun to that. It's you get your underdogs.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and that is delightful. But also, it's a change in what we consider high art and low art, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're saying with symphonies, like we have this idea that older classical music is the only stuff that counts, but that stuff was part of popular operas back in the day.
Yeah.
That some of that was low art.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only in retrospect that we see it as high art.
Yeah.
So we have to embrace the changing idea of what art is.
Yeah, and who accesses it and who can enjoy it and appreciate it. I think that's one thing that's cool about the Oscars is movies that you might not have heard of because they don't come into your radar. You're like, oh, this small film that I would never have thought to see. Now it's on an Oscar, so I should pay a little attention.
Yeah. And like art can be entertaining and they're not exclusive to each other.
It's because it sounds like they're diversifying the Oscars. And
Yes.
that's how you get more people into it. No one cares about all your old people white voices. I mean, some other old white people do, I guess. But like, the world is so much broader than that.
Not everything needs to be the English patient, you
No.
know?
Who you think's going to win?
Okay. If I have to call it now,
We're gonna ask you to give us a full like Oscar pool afterwards.
Yeah,
for
and
our nerds letter.
That's right. As part of our Patreon.
Yeah, as part of our Patreon. But for right now, I just want to hear like your best picture.
right now I'm predicting Conclave.
Okay.
Which I think is a bit of a like
Dark horse.
a bit of a left horse pick right now. More people are getting on the bandwagon. The reason being, Best Picture is voted on in a weird way. Instead of picking your favorite, you rank the films.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's ranked ballot.
It's ranked ballot.
Okay.
The film with the least number 1 votes gets knocked out. Those ballots go to their number 2 and they recount.
Okay.
So for a film to win, it doesn't necessarily need to have a small contingent of people who love it. It needs broad support. It needs to be a consensus pick. A lot of the films have a lot of haters.
Ooh.
But Conclave, I liked.
Yeah.
My mom saw, she liked.
Yeah.
Most people come out of it being like, yeah, good film, sure. It's not a lot of
Fascinating.
people's like diehard favorite.
But it's a lot of number 2s.
It's a lot of number 2 and 3s.
That is so interesting. I did not realize that about the ranked ballot.
I love that.
Yeah.
More ranked ballot things, please. It's so much more representative.
Yeah, very often. I agree. All right, so we're gonna play a little mini game.
Okay.
With you, where we're gonna talk about some of these big Oscar snubs and successes, and I'm gonna list some of these like big controversial moments. I've gone to the internet and consulted with all of the fans, every single one of them,
Yeah,
every
Oscar
single
fan.
Oscar fan.
You pulled the Academy.
Yeah.
You're PricewaterhouseCooper.
Yeah, I'm them. In human form. I'm sorry. So I'm going to list some of these big controversial moments, and I would love for you to react to them in, let's say, like 3 words.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Number 1. Moonlight versus La La Land.
Love La La Land. Work.
Okay. Crash versus Brokeback Mountain. Maybe one of the most infamous of all time.
An inevitable choice.
Talk about Oscar bait, eh? Fucking
Yeah.
Crash. Get out of here. Okay. Shakespeare in Love versus Saving Private Ryan.
Fuck Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, that was one of those iconic ones, right? That he pushed Shakespeare in Love really hard.
Yeah, he did an incredible job campaigning that. Wish he was worse at his job.
Yeah, not to say Shakespeare in Love is a bad movie.
No, it's
Yeah.
fine.
A perfectly good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's not Saving Private Ryan.
Exactly.
Okay. Bohemian Rhapsody for best editing.
If you're not watching this, Matilda just lost it physically.
Yeah.
A couple words. Have we seen it? Did we watch the film?
You mean the movie where they tried to make Freddie Mercury not gay? Yes, that.
Oh my God! There is a film essay that Thomas Flight does about. I know. I hear myself. I know what I sound like.
No, but you're so right, and you have to say it.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge that someone slipped LSD into the editing branches.
100%.
Coffee.
Even the editors, I think, are like, I didn't have very good coverage. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how this
I
happened.
think what happened there, because that was like a director swap mid-production.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure what happened is the editors were like, that sounds like that was real rough on you. I'm so sorry. You
Here's an
did your best
Oscar.
with what you had.
Yeah, maybe that was a career Oscar and we didn't know it because we don't know editors' careers as well.
Yeah.
Or like their life is depending on this Oscar. They're
Yeah.
going to melt down.
Okay, 100%. Okay, King's Speech over Social Network.
In the words of Whitney Houston, it's not right, but it's okay.
Okay, The Dark Knight never getting nominated for Best Picture.
We fixed it.
Yeah,
We fixed it.
That's when they introduced 10 nominees.
Yeah.
beautiful.
They were like, okay, maybe we need to look at this again. Never mind.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hot take. This isn't a hot take. It's Christopher Nolan's best movie.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and this one, Steph questioned beforehand, being like, "Is this a real thing?" And I was
Did
like,
you typo by not putting more words?
"Nope, you wait." Green Book.
We fixed racism.
I really loved Spike Jonze's reaction to that, where he was like, "Every time somebody's driving somebody else, I lose an Oscar."
Yeah, speaking of which, Do the Right Thing not being nominated the year of Driving Miss Daisy.
Reward Spike Jones.
Reward Spike Jonze. Give the man something. Okay.
We did just do The Right Thing for our Patreon.
We did.
I saw it for the first time ever.
And we do talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit, so
yeah.
you can check that out. 2001: A Space Odyssey, never getting a nomination.
Does not compute.
Ha.
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane. Yep.
This happens. The best films don't get nominations or Oscars. They still survive in history no matter what.
I'm so glad you said that because I forgot to put Citizen Kane on this list. So thank you for sliding in and covering that.
Okay, Forrest Gump over Pulp Fiction or Shawshank Redemption.
I kind of agree.
Hey, I love it.
Honestly,
love it.
same.
There's got to be one like win that everybody hates where you're like, no, actually, I'm kind of in for it. For me, I love Best Supporting Actress. That's my like go-to category. People were so mad that Laura Dern won for Marriage Story.
Laura Dern deserves everything in the world.
She does. People were mad because they were like, we love Laura Dern. This is not what she needs to win for. I'm like, no, I kind of thought she.
Let her have it. Get off of her back.
I mean, on that note, I'm gonna just skip ahead. Oh no, I'm not. This is just perfectly timed. Next one is Sandra Bullock winning for The Blind Side.
Oh, what does this mean? What does this mean?
They should have waited.
They should have waited because Gravity came out after that, right?
They were so excited that Sandra Bullock was back in the conversation that they were like, yes, let's keep her in here. Let's give her the Oscar over any other performance in that lineup, which would have been better. Like, if you had just waited a couple of years, Sandra Bullock was right there.
Yeah.
It would have been a reasonable year to give it to her.
Because Gravity would have been
Yeah.
it.
Sometimes they get impatient and it bites them in the ass.
Yeah, it kind of makes me feel like The Whale is a similar scenario.
Absolutely.
Recently. Because they were just like, he's back.
Oh, we love him. Brendan Fraser. Welcome back. We missed you.
And they just like fucking hucked at Oscar.
Yeah. Like he had to dodge it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The English Patient over Fargo.
Can't win them all.
Have the Coen brothers won? Like,
Whoa, that is a good question. I know they've been nominated dozens of times, and I know they have won Best Screenplay several times.
okay, but have
And
they ever
Best
won
Director.
a Best Picture?
I don't know if they've ever won Best Picture.
Don't think so.
If they were going to, Fargo should have been it, because Fargo's their best movie by like some margin.
Okay, we're gonna have a fight about this later. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou is their best film.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is
Seconded by Raising Arizona. Fight me on it.
Raising Arizona's great. Yeah.
I made you watch it. Finally, this one I have no context for this. E.T. losing to Gandhi. Is this trolling? Are you trolling?
Hey, no, that's one people like to talk about. It for sure is a silly one.
Ban biopics.
Biopics are like just
They're the Oscar baitiest.
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't help but think of like the year that Kate Winslet won her Oscar. That In Bruges was
Did
up
you
against.
watch any other Oscars?
No, I just love that one. If
No,
that's
that was a
like-
good year.
It was a good year. But In Bruges was up against Lost to Milk. And I remember at the time being
No.
like, In Bruges is a brilliant screenplay.
It is a beautiful-
It's a brilliant, beautiful screenplay. And Milk won because milk is milk.
Yeah, the peak of this to me is Timothée Chalamet and Gary Oldman. Call Me by Your Name and The Darkest Hour. When he's up in Winston Churchill drag,
Yeah.
full fat suited up,
Yeah.
giving it his all.
I can't believe they did that to Timothée Chalamet.
His range as an actor is incredible.
I mean, at this point, I think they will.
They
I think
will.
He's
Yeah.
going to be like one of the youngest, most nominated people of all
Everyone
time.
loves him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like to think we're starting to maybe move past it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think people are a little bit more hesitant about any music biopic now, especially after
'cause-
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Woof.
Well, because also there's so much that if you're going to do a biopic, tell us the truth about what's going on, and they never do.
Yeah. Also, just like, I'm so sorry, but they nominated Freddie Mercury's teeth. That's what they nominated.
And they were terrible.
They were so
They were
bad.
so cartoony.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
It's like the Oscars have not always been this biopic-y. Like back in the day of Stars, it was definitely political, but it was not this based around like, oh, you transformed. It was more
Yeah.
like, oh, your star persona matched up exactly with the movie you were doing and you like killed it, or you survived a crazy production,
Yeah.
or you managed to do something completely out of type for you. Now it's just, how much makeup did you wear? And is there a real person where we can do like a side-by-side TikTok clip of the real person doing it and you doing it?
Yeah.
And
oh, it's so
how big
true.
was the nose you put on for that character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which movie was that with the? Oh, it was friggin'. What's his face? Oh, this is terrible. They put on a giant nose.
Maestro.
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 thank you.
Every
Oh,
year
that
has
was
a villain.
offensive.
Every year has an Oscars villain. Maestro was that year's, and God, was it good at being a villain.
I have never thought of it that way, that every year has a villain, but you're totally
Who's
right.
this year's villain?
Amelia Perez.
Emilia Perez.
There's
yeah.
no
Yes,
question.
100%.
Everyone's so mad already.
Yeah, the second From Penis to Vagina hit Twitter, the award season villain was
I don't
solidified.
know what that means.
Ooh,
I
do
don't
get-
either, actually.
So,
Tell us.
do you know the plot of Emilia Perez? I'll assume-
Yes, it is. I forget what they're famous for, but someone who is like, maybe they're not famous, comes out as trans and has to deal with their
A
ex.
Mexican cartel.
Mexican
leader.
cartel. Yes, I read this morning. Why did I forget? But it was also made by a white French man.
Yes, absolutely,
Great.
it was.
Great.
Not in Mexico, not
Not
by
in Mexico.
Mexicans.
So it is a musical.
Yeah.
And they have a song called La Vaginoplastia, where Zoe Saldana shows up to Thailand, of course, and sings with a doctor about sex change operations, where he asks, man to woman, woman to man. She goes, man to woman. Oh, from penis to vagina.
Is that's
Does
real?
that literally
That is
happen?
literally real.
See-
This movie has as many, or if not more, Oscar nominations than Return of the King.
Oh my God! I'm gonna burn this movie to the ground.
It has more.
Yes.
It is one of the most nominated movies in history.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
See, and now you're getting on board with the villain, right?
I'm going to watch it just to watch that movie hopefully lose.
This is the narrative.
But it's dangerous because also they're like, it's probably one of the few movies that actually has like a trans main character.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If a trans character is nominated at the Oscars, trans people probably hate them.
Oh, no question. Jared fucking Leto.
Eddie fucking Redmayne.
Eddie fucking Redmayne.
This is the first time a trans woman's
terrible.
actually playing the character we hate, so we do love that.
We love that.
But
Trans
no,
people are
it's
just
still
people.
a bad
You can
character.
just hate the characters. It doesn't have to be about them being trans.
Yeah. Oh, man. But
God,
yes,
kill
it
me.
is. You're absolutely right. We don't represent
so
this.
mad right now.
Yeah. See,
You just
this
said the Return of the King had like maybe not as many. I'm just like, I'm furious.
and this is the fun of the Oscars.
Yeah.
It's the whole narrative.
Because
Because
if you can now watch another film beat that, especially a film that you like, the rush of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
It feels so personal.
you gotta pick your person and go hard for them. Yeah.
Okay, this is your moment to get out any last thoughts about the Oscars that you need the people to hear.
I'm so optimistic about them.
Aw.
I'm so optimistic.
Hey.
The past few years have been so good. So many cool films have been nominated. So many cool people have won. That I think they could genuinely be a big force in improving the movie industry post Marvel. Not to say
Yes.
Marvel's dead, but
But
there's
they're too much.
and there's a missing middle now.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the Oscars are going to be a big part of bringing that back. You're seeing films like Everything Everywhere All at Once succeed there and at the box office.
Yep.
You're starting to feel that synergy again. I think this could be the start of a big resurgence. And it's going to be so fun to watch.
I love that.
hopeful. That's so nice and hopeful.
It's going to be this and A24. Those are going to be the two
Yeah.
things
They're gonna
that are
save
bring,
Hollywood.
Bring the movie industry back. That's delightful.
That's amazing. Well, at the end of every episode, we like to share our micro fandoms of the week, which we're going to do in just a moment. But before we do, here's some ways you can get in touch with us. As mentioned, the show's always going to be free, but if you want to give us some extra financial support, head on over to patreon.com/The Fandom Show, where you can get our podcast, The Fan Club. You can listen to episodes early, submit questions. Just come and say hi to us. We love to hang out and we love to chat with you. You can also find us on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube at Fandom Show Pod, or head on over to our website, thefandomshow.com.
Here at the Fandom Show, we're big fans of telling everybody about the things you love. So please, we encourage you, we support you. Tell all of your nerdiest friends about us. If you could please get on your podcast provider of choice, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything else, do a little rate, review, subscribe, nominate us, if you will. Even a one-sentence review or one-word review really helps us. It helps us move up in the charts. Means more people can discover us, and maybe they'll get a fandom out of it, and you will have changed their life. Pretty cool.
You'll look so good.
That's right, exactly. Spread the word. So we also have merch. You can head on over to tpublic.com/stores/The Fandom Show and snag our faces on your favorite things like shirts, mugs, and you're not going to believe this, more. And then you can find us on the From Superheroes Discord, where you can meet other fans or hit us up directly. And our theme song is by Yusu Kim, and our logo is by John Blair. And now,
Micro-fandom time. Micro-fandom time. Should we make a theme song for this section? Okay, it doesn't matter. Kaya, what are you nerding out about right now?
So I've just been on a real film kick.
Yep.
Partially because the Oscars are coming up. Partially because I just recently watched The Substance. And you know what? This is a weird micro fandom because I don't even think I fully liked The Substance.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. But the fact that I didn't like it and so many people did like it has created this like desire for me to read about it and think about it and understand why I didn't like it. And that on its own has been really fun for me.
Yeah.
And it's made me like The Substance more just because I have enjoyed talking about why I don't like The Substance with my friends.
Exactly. I did the same thing coming out of that film. I was like, I don't think I liked that. Let's fix that.
Yeah, because like as a film nerd, then you just want to like kind of dissect it and figure out why, and I think it's successful in that respect.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I could go on about what I don't like about it. I wish they had characters, but yeah, overrated. But yeah, that's for a different time. But the process of us all discussing it, I think, is really fun, and I think that's the delight of a very buzzy movie. Steph, what about you?
Okay, so I'm 1,000 years behind on pop culture because I don't do stuff. But I've recently got into the show Bridgerton.
Oh.
Okay, so I fell in love with Jonathan Bailey because of Wicked.
Yes.
Understandable.
And Bridgerton, I was like, you're so straight. This show's so straight. It's hard for me to watch sometimes when stuff is too...
gayer.
I know. So I started watching Bridgerton because I was like, I just need more Jonathan Bailey. He's just delightful and I love him. And season 1, I was like, I don't like him. I don't know if I still like Jonathan Bailey as his character. But I got sucked in. I'm so invested. I watched the whole 3 seasons in like a week and a half. Now I'm fully the subreddit. I can't stop reading it. Everything Bridgerton, I'm about it. I'm also going to throw in a little side thing of The Traitors season 3 because it's just so dumb. Everyone on that show, if you like it, I like it too. And I say this with love. They're all idiots.
They're all idiots.
They're all beautiful.
That's what reality TV needs.
I know. I started watching for Tom Sandoval because I love Vanderpump Rules, and he's just the moron of the ages.
Watching him try and be a real boy beside
He's
everybody
working
else.
so hard to try to be real and normal, and it's not working.
It looks like a 12-year-old got cast and is trying really hard to make sure no one notices he's 12.
Yeah,
It's
brilliant.
funny.
Like the most recent episode we watched had them doing riddles, and I was like, this is going to be iconic because they're not intelligent, most of them.
And Tom Sandoval
Sandoval's like, I know riddles because I watched Harry Potter. I'm like Tom Riddle.
I've read the Da Vinci Code, so I'm pretty good at riddles. It's so
Brilliant. If
funny.
you just want some comedy and just a way to unwind on a Friday, check out Trader season 3.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
Matilda, what are you into right now?
My micro fandom of the week is the PWHL.
Oh,
I
we haven't seen a game yet.
I was not a sports girly.
Okay.
I was not that's why I got into the Oscars. This was my sports. And then the PWHL came
Ooh,
around.
have you been to a
delightful.
game?
I've been to multiple.
Okay, what's a PWHL for folks that might not know?
Professional Women's Hockey League.
Okay.
It is North America's current women's hockey league. You got 6 teams: Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, New York, and Minnesota. Mm-hmm. They are fighting it out. They are scrappy. They are happy to be there. They're having the best time. They're gay a lot of the time,
Yes!
which makes it all so much better. They are it is so nice to see women's hockey take off in this way and have this level of reach, this budget, this many fans. Going to a game, you're just surrounded by little girls who are 8 to 12 and so excited to see that they could be hockey players
my
one day.
God.
And the players will come by and give them pucks or little things.
I love it so
The
much.
sign, it's so wholesome. Everybody gets into the energy and is into it, but still at the end of the day is we're all still just kind of happy this is happening
Yeah.
too. It's a great mix of the intensity of sports with just the nice feeling of community.
Can we go to a game together?
Yeah.
Please.
I
would
want to
love
go.
that.
I want to go.
It's so
Because
good.
I want to get into it. Because also I've heard a lot of sports fans who are kind of getting burnt out of these massive franchises. Be like
The
"This
Marvel
is-"
effect.
Yeah, exactly. Are kind of being this is fun because everyone's so excited to be here, and for Leafs fans, it's fun to feel joy again. You know.
I mean, let's not get carried. Toronto choked in the playoffs and then is having a rough season. I'm experiencing the Toronto
Fair
hockey
enough.
phenomenon
Yep.
in.
That's just Toronto sports,
That's
period.
just Toronto
Exactly.
sports. Yeah, but at the same
I feel
time,
so
it's
local
still,
now.
That's beautiful. But yeah, it's just nice to have that indie feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Matilda, for being here. Is there, where can people find you? Anything you want to plug?
I want to plug Rainbow Road.
Hell
Our
yeah.
back catalog is still chilling there for everybody
Yeah.
to listen to. Hopefully we can get started up again at some point soon.
With our Kingdom Hearts guest, Travis Ryan.
Yeah, that's
also
right.
co-host.
Beyond that, I'm Digital Tilda on Instagram. Tilda TILDE, the little squiggly thing on your keyboard
Yeah.
that you don't know the name of. Welcome, you learned something.
Learned a lot of things.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Until next time, love the things you love and tell everyone about them.
Bye.
Do we always hit the exact same 2 different notes on that last
I
one?
think you do. That sounded very familiar.
The Phantom Show.